Ribs. I had ribs for lunch. That's why I'm doing this.
How now, brown cow? How now, brown cow? How now?
Oh, my day's complete now. We had to throw that in. We're cooking ribs on the show today. How are you doing, Brody White?
Good. Hi, Susan.
Good, good. Good to see you. Brody, of course, from Chop and Block, one of the coolest stores in town when it comes to meat. And we're talking today about ribs. We got quite a display here on the screen.
Yeah, lots of different kinds of ribs.
Yeah, come on over this way. I think we're supposed to have you guys closer this way. What is the secret to a good ribs, Brody?
Is slow cooking, for one. I think a lot of people know that, but not boiling them is really important.
I know a lot of people that boil ribs.
It's an idea that's lasted forever, but I have no idea why.
But I've eaten their ribs and they're good.
They're good. They're not great.
Okay, okay.
The idea is that when you boil ribs, you're extracting flavor. So you've got a very little bit of ribs in a big pot of water. All the flavor ends up in the water. The water tastes great, but the ribs kind of rib water. But you're basically making a broth with that.
Yes.
Where my idea or my thought process is braise them in a liquid that tastes amazing. So
sure.
You can either do any sort of infused broth or sauce. So for the short ribs, we're going to use a dark, rich beef broth.
Okay.
With lots of herbs, onion, garlic, that kind of thing.
All right.
For pork, I might use just straight barbecue sauce. Just braise them in that and then just grill them at the end.
Okay.
But we'll get some beef short ribs going to start.
Okay. What's the most popular thing at the store, beef or pork ribs?
Both, really.
Yeah.
I find, well, beef ribs, we're doing it now because it's the fall. It's kind of cold out. It's a great dish on a cold day.
Yeah.
But pork ribs in the summertime are huge, obviously,
yeah.
on the barbecue. So you just want to start by seasoning the ribs.
Okay.
Always you want to get a good crust of salt on there. And then what I use, because we're cooking it in a sauce and we're going to use that sauce, I'm gonna put a little flour on it. This is going to thicken that sauce up, so it's got a little bit more consistency to it.
Does this sort of lock the flavors in a bit too, or I don't know?
It creates caramelization,
okay,
which makes your broth a little bit more rich and a little bit more flavorful. Okay. It's a little bit of oil, and we're just going to start searing each side. I used rice flour here for those that are
rice flour.
Sorry.
Rice flour.
For those that have aversions.
Okay.
To wheat products.
Aversions. That's a good word.
Yes. So you just want to get a really good sear on each side. And then what I've recently doing, I used to be quite against it. I use the slow cooker.
You do?
Yeah. And
this is quite a large slow cooker, this one.
It is, yeah. I go big or go home. But nice. As a chef in the kitchen, I was always against the slow cooker.
Really?
It seemed kind of redundant. Like we all have ovens.
Yes.
But then at home, when you're using a lot more energy, you're heating up a house that
yes,
you don't need to heat up with an oven being on.
So in your perfect world of making the perfect ribs, the slow cooker is a part of the recipe
for beef. For beef short ribs. For beef short ribs.
Okay.
It's a braise. But what I don't like about slow cookers is when it's just kind of like chuck everything in the pot and turn it on, come home, and it's done.
Yeah.
You really have to work to create those flavors,
yeah.
Just like you would if you were doing a braise in a pot in the oven.
Okay. We have about a minute left for this segment. So what else do we need to talk about?
Well, we're gonna get the good sear on here.
These are like massive eyebrow tweezers. Look at these. Massive eyebrow tweezers. I enjoy those. Okay, back to where you were.
I'll just pretend that we got a really good color on each side of these. I'm going to take these out. And then whenever you do this searing part, there's always a little bit of the flour that's stuck to the pan.
Yes.
And a little bit of the meat. You want to keep that. You want to use that. So you just need to glaze it.
Okay.
With either a little bit of broth or wine. Works really well. Just going to use that, and that's going to take all that caramelization that happens in the pan. And then basically from here, we drop those into the slow cooker. We use our broth that we use, or that we've started. So, and then we would saute some onions, some garlic, lots of herb. All put it in there, and then you have a good base to start with.
How long?
I go 8 hours on a higher setting.
So the slower the better, really.
Yeah, for sure. Slow.
Awesome.
Slow.
Fabulous tips here today on cooking short ribs, beef short ribs. But we're going to talk about all of this coming up after a break. Stay with us. Welcome back. We're back in the kitchen here with Brody White from Chop and Block, and we're going to be talking about some of the great meat that he brought here, all kinds of different ribs. I don't even know where you want to start.
Yeah, so there's lots of kinds of ribs. There's beef and pork, basically. Starting with pork, you have side ribs, back ribs, both very similar cooking techniques. You don't want to go straight on the grill. You want, like I said, you want to slow cook first. I don't boil. I would cook in a shallow pan, covered with some sort of liquid. So barbecue sauce, beer, something with big flavor.
In a big pan?
Yeah, well, they're big pieces of meat.
Sure, yes, as big as you can find.
Yeah.
And how long would you leave them in that for?
About 2 hours to 2.5 hours. For pork, takes much less time than beef.
Okay,
sure.
okay.
Going down, these two are actually, they're ribs. They are grilling, so you don't have to pre-cook these ones.
Okay.
These are a country-style spare rib, and these are pork rib tail end. You know them from like dry garlic spare ribs.
Sure.
Is what the most common recipe we do with those guys. This is a lot more meaty. It comes from the rib end of the loin, so lots of flavor there.
Okay.
Moving down, so we've got beef ribs. So these are beef short ribs. Cut in two different ways. This is the same cut of meat, just cut differently.
Okay.
This would be for grilling, so if you were to marinate them, possibly for a Maui rib is probably the most common.
Okay.
Beef short ribs, which we like braising, which we just did. These are beef back ribs, not very common. They're huge flavor. It's the rib that you would see on a prime rib.
Yep.
Again, it's a braise before grill. Because they are kind of tough.
Right,
so, but huge amount of flavor in there, and quite impressive if you're having some people over.
Sure.
They have these big, massive racks of ribs.
Right, like the Flintstones.
Yeah, and these are very uncommon. Starting to see a little bit in some of the barbecue joints in the southern United States.
Sure.
They're called plate ribs.
Okay.
You'd cook them exactly the same as you would a brisket.
Okay.
So really low and slow, lots of smoke, and they're just going to be super tender. There's lots of fat in there, so that's going to take a long time to render out and kind of permeate that meat, but it's going to be delicious.
Good, awesome, awesome. So what are we going to finish the segment with here?
We're going to plate up some food.
Okay.
Here. So we've got two different styles of ribs, I think for two different seasons. First, we've got our
the magic of TV.
Yeah, the short ribs that cooked in about 5 minutes.
Boy, did they ever.
Yeah, so.
You can see that the bones are literally falling off. Exactly,
so that's a good indication that your ribs are cooked.
Right.
Once the meat starts to shrink away from the bone.
Okay.
Okay, so we'll just start. It's a good fall dish. We've got a butternut squash risotto.
Yummy, really yummy.
Some roasted vegetables.
If that doesn't scream fall deliciousness, I don't know what does. And then finishing it off with those ribs on the top. And these are the short ribs.
These are the short ribs, so beef short ribs.
So for you, short ribs end up in a slow cooker, but most of this is going to end up meeting up with the barbecue at the end of the night.
Absolutely.
Right?
So what I've done, because we don't have a barbecue, I've pre-cooked my pork back ribs.
Wow.
So these guys here.
Yeah.
And exactly like I was saying, barbecue sauce.
Yeah.
Just low and slow. And then at this point, it'd be a good time to hit the barbecue just for a little bit of a reheat.
Sure.
You could do that before your guests arrive, so pre-cook it all, and then just plate it up or just grill it when they get there.
Fantastic. Brody, this has been a great segment. Thank you so much for being here today.
No problem.
Yeah,
Thank you.
Yeah, we've learned lots about ribs, how to make them better. I didn't know you're not supposed to boil them, so I learned something here. SpruceGoose.ca, as well as the phone number on the screen, 828-8616. We're back in 2 minutes. Stay with us.
Great.